Hello everybody, welcome to Women in Tech Birmingham's latest event. As I'm sure you're aware, we're going to be talking a bit about career changes, particularly focusing on getting into a career in tech without sort of the formal training or the traditional experience like a computer science degree. As we know, there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. Unfortunately, a lot of people are out of work, and many people might be considering starting a career in tech. It's just starting something new. But as we know, that can be quite daunting. You look at job adverts and they've got long lists, 20 or 30 things, all the languages and software and stuff that you must be proficient in, and that's so intimidating. Just knowing where to start with, what to start with. So yeah, we just wanted to get people to speak for us who knew that experience, who got into their current field without the traditional qualifications, and wanted them to talk a bit about what they would advise, what they would think the best languages to learn are, or the best kind of online courses you can take, if they would recommend that. So yeah, we hope that if that's you, if you're someone who's looking to get into tech, that you find the next few videos useful. If you're already in tech, we hope that you enjoy hearing the experiences and the stories of some of the people that may work alongside you. So yeah, we hope that you enjoy very much, and we'll start with our first video now.
Hi, my name's Rachel. I'm a user researcher. My pronouns are she, her, and at the moment I live in Warsaw, which is just outside Birmingham. I work for Hippo Digital, which is a digital design consultancy, and I'm currently on a project with NHS Digital working on COVID-19 testing. User researchers, our responsibility is to plan, design, and carry out research activities with users that help the team, usually an agile or a scrum team, to get a deep understanding of the people that are going to use that digital service, whether it's a website, an app, a feature, anything like that really. And the research insights help inform design, service design, the content, interaction design, maybe the policy that underlines it. And basically make sure that whatever you're building or designing is going to work well for your end user, and that it achieves what your business or your organisation or your policy department or the government want to achieve. I've only been doing this role for a couple of years. Previously, I studied psychology and criminology at Keele University. When I graduated in 2007, I got a job at a community-based substance misuse service, so kind of in the health and social care bubble. So I worked with offenders on a one-to-one basis who were using drugs and alcohol. There was a lot of behaviour change type stuff, supporting people skills, risk management, things like that. And I kind of worked my way through various roles in that field for the best part of a decade, and eventually I was a manager of a young person service and then a safeguarding lead, and my role was to look at our riskiest kind of service users, how we can improve service delivery, looking at incidents that might have happened or where a service user kind of passed away, what we could do better, how we could improve things. And supporting staff with training and upskilling them at the same time. So I've been in this service for kind of quite a long time. So I didn't initially decide to move careers. My partner is a software developer, and he was working within an agile digital team in a government department at the time. And he thought that I would be good at being a user researcher. It sounded like something that was really up my street, but I was quite worried that it was a big career leap and I didn't really have any specific researcher experience. But where I was in kind of social care, budgets were being cut every single year, every single time. we were having to do more with less. It was very stressful. Um, I'd worked my way up to team leader. The next step up would be service manager, and that wasn't a role that was either available or something that I really wanted to do. And salaries were never going to get any better. So although it was a really comfortable role, it was like a 5 minute drive from my workplace. It was very comfort zone. There wasn't the freedom to really do much outside of what we were doing. And I decided to kind of make a break. And at the time, I felt that if I didn't do it, then I'd just stay there forever and that would just be my job forever. So I decided to leave, and I did probably one of the scariest things I've done, which was to go self employed. So I did all that horrible paperwork, all of the tax stuff, the insurance, everything to be a contractor. I managed to get a position. I will say that it was because my partner knew somebody who knew somebody. So I was a little bit lucky in that I found out of the opportunity that way. I got a position in a digital team in a government department. It wasn't actually doing anything really digital. It was sort of engagement work. So it wasn't what I wanted to do, but it was a foot in the door, and it allowed me to kind of observe how these digital teams worked, to uh, be aware of who was kind of working in that space, what different departments did, kind of make some of those connections through the role. And it also gave me the freedom to do courses in my own time, pay for those kind of courses, and do self-reading blogs. I followed a load of people on Twitter. Basically anything I could do that I thought was going to kind of help or build up that backlog of kind of experience, I tried to do. And as a contractor, your learning and development is your own responsibility. So you have to be quite driven to kind of, sit there and read those books that you've bought, and kind of do the research. After I got kind of a little bit further forward with things, I started to apply for jobs, mainly for the experience, but hoping that I might get lucky with something. So initially, I got the inevitable rejections. Some were, you don't have this specific job experience, so i.e. you'd never been a user researcher before, or some it was just like an automated thanks but no thanks, and some I just didn't hear back from at all. So eventually I saw a job ad on LinkedIn for Hippo Digital, and I had a telephone interview with them, and it just felt so much better than all the others. I think there was a real sense of kind of what transferable skills you brought across, what sort of work they valued, what sort of people they valued in their team, and that kind of attitude that they took to their work. So that was really positive, and they took me on as a contract user researcher. Bearing in mind that at this point I had zero experience as a researcher in an official capacity. I really enjoyed my time as a contractor, and I actually went permanent with Hippo last March, just as the pandemic was kind of starting to ramp up, which has kind of been good for a number of reasons for me from professionally. I think for a long time I didn't feel like I was in tech. User research is a lot of talking to people, a lot of understanding what they are doing, how they behave, what they think. And I think I had the early opinion that I couldn't really say I worked in tech because I wasn't a developer or a tech arc or a tester. But I think as I got exposed more and became more familiar working in an agile team, it was really key to me how important that kind of user research is for digital teams, especially in the public sector. And all these different cogs, these different roles that everyone had kind of all coming together in their specific way, in their specific remit, to make sure that inevitably the end user had the best experience that we were able to give them at the time. So I think I feel more comfortable saying that I work in tech now. And having read some real horror stories about how tech and digital projects can go wrong or go off the rails or completely the wrong direction, if the user just isn't considered from the outset. I think that really are really good examples of how research complements those technical aspects. And I've had a lot of experience now working with devs, architects, business analysts, delivery managers, and that's really valuable to understand how your role kind of interacts with other people. The settling in period, I think going from not a tech person to a digital kind of consultancy and a digital role, very, very much imposter syndrome, which I know a lot of us experience, and we've talked about a lot of times at Birmingham Women in Tech meetups. I was very aware that I did not come from the traditional kind of background. I hadn't been a researcher before in any kind of capacity. But what I did know was that I really, really wanted this. I was really passionate about it. I was really interested in it. And it did become a bit of that horrible cliche, like fake it till you make it. I really didn't want to come across as the newbie. And there is something to be said for, as you approach something, if you give it all you've got, you act confident, you do your research if you don't know, or you speak to people if you need that bit of support, but you do it. It does work, and you do kind of get over that sort of sense of feeling like you don't belong. I also came from a really typical kind of hierarchical manager structure. I had managed staff, I had been managed. It was very very kind of hierarchical and very structured, and you did things when you were told, and you were allocated work, and you checked in, and it was very, not quite micromanaging, but it was very structured. And coming into work in tech, obviously with kind of not having that management structure, having to be very self-sufficient, and being really driven, I much preferred that kind of way of working. And it took a little bit of getting used to that you didn't have to wait for someone to tell you what to do. You could use your own initiative and your best insight and kind of make things happen. I think that was really empowering, rather than feeling like you were being babysat. I think if anyone else was interested in user research, I'm really, having been there, I'm really supportive of new researchers. I still consider myself a fairly there's still lots to learn, and it is really cliche, but I would say just do it. Just start doing anything that is going to kind of help you, even if it's not in a formal capacity. If it's reading blogs, following people on Twitter, if it's doing a free course online, if it's reading books on UX research, whether it's asking someone if you can shadow what they're doing. I definitely built up this fear at the start that I wasn't good enough or experienced enough. But as I became exposed to more researchers, I realised that I'd kind of built them up in my head to be these kind of magical beings that had all these magical skills. And actually, they'd gone through that period of kind of hard work and being the new person and learning things. And actually, it wasn't a tick box exercise. I had a lot of transferable skills. I had something to bring to the table, and had skills that maybe other people didn't have, and vice versa. Other people had skills that I wanted to develop, and you can kind of learn that way. The user research kind of community is really supportive, and I found that everyone that I've spoken to, especially in kind of government digital services, is always willing to help out a fellow researcher, always willing to share kind of what they've learned, what not to do, what works best for them, how to use a specific tool. I've had so many experiences that were like my first as a user researcher, the first stand-up I ever went to, the first stakeholder meeting I had to present at, the first session with someone with access needs, the first session of going through the backlog. And all of those were probably really scary at the time, and you're constantly learning. But whenever you've got over that kind of first, everything else always feels a little bit easier after that. I'm more than happy for anyone to reach out to me if they want to talk about what it's like to be a user researcher. If you think you've got the skills or you've got the right attitude and you'd like to be a user researcher, you should check out the Hippo Digital website, because we are generally always recruiting for UX and user researchers. So thanks for listening.
I'm Jake. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a 28-year-old software developer in Birmingham. I was asked to put together this video detailing my experiences in getting into the software development industry without formal training, with the aim to explain how you might be able to get into this industry as well. I'm currently working at the Nationwide Caterers Association, aka NCAS, as one of their lead developers and have previously held 2 other jobs at MyTech and then DataFlexNet in Stafford. In my current role, I'm working at what is known as a full-stack developer. I have development responsibilities from managing the infrastructure on which our code runs, to working on the back-end server code, to creating the front-end web app our customers use. To talk a bit of my background, I must admit that it has definitely afforded me advantages in getting into the software industry, on top of the fact that I'm masculine presenting, which will also have given me an unfair edge due to inherent bias. At A-level, I was able to take a basic computer science course, giving a basic introduction to programming and some related concepts, and from there I went on to do a master's degree in mathematics at the University of Birmingham. During my degree, I taught myself Python programming language for my own interest and took advantage of the opportunity to do a year in computer science sandwich in the middle of my degree. The year in computer science gave me some more programming experience as well as some experience working in a software development team. Now, despite what might seem like a lot of training, I can say that in hindsight, at least 50% of the stuff I was actually taught has never been of any relevance in my work, and of the rest, nothing more than the basics has really been of much use at work. I feel that while there was no doubt some advantage to having had this education, there was nothing I was taught that I couldn't learn from good free online tutorials. It'll definitely take some time to work through when your education time isn't dedicated to it, but the content should be readily available. Additionally, while I did all the above, there are many technologies I've worked with in my career that didn't even get touched on in my education. My first job at MyTech was using the C# language, which I had never had any interaction with until my first day on the job. Other things that have been key parts of my work, but not any part of my education, include technologies such as React, Akka and WPF, team skills such as agile development methods, pull requests and task refinement and planning, and anything approaching modern web development. When I started university, I was unaware of what sort of job I wanted after I was done studying. Lots of potential jobs in finance, analysis and teaching never really appealed to me, but towards the end of my degree, the idea of writing software did, and thus I pursued that out of university. My first position, as mentioned previously, was with MyTech, a company within the roofing industry, in 2016. To get this role, I pursued multiple roles, seriously pursuing 3 and getting 2 offers. One thing that will help is recruiters. Even though they can be pushy and somewhat annoying, if you can get on their radar as looking for a tech role, you really shouldn't be short of leads at all. With my first interviews, I couldn't rely on any previous experience, so I had to equip myself best I could for those positions. I relied heavily on highlighting what interpersonal skills I had, as well as basic programming concepts such as the solid principles of software design. Joining MyTech, I was put on a small team developing a C# application using Microsoft WPF. In my first role, there were quite a lot of new skills, technologies and knowledge that I had to adapt to quickly, which I found to be quite intimidating. Some examples would be, I'd never used the C# language or the WPF framework we were using. The particular architecture patterns we used in the role were new to me. The team working involved, such as participating in code reviews, was also new. There were a lot of roofing industry specific knowledge that I had to understand. During my settling in period of the first few months, I had a lot of help from everyone. I got training on the technologies and languages that were new to me. My teammates were happy to have questions asked and provide answers. I was given a crash course on the particulars of the roofing industry we dealt with, and people within the company with more experience than me were always happy to fill in the gaps of my knowledge. The biggest challenge I faced in entering the industry without specific training was honestly a lack of experience, issues that people with more specific education or experience would avoid, but I stumbled into. The way I handled this was asking lots of questions and taking constructive criticism so I could continue to grow and develop. Even after my first few years at MyTech, moving on to other roles was still very daunting. For example, every role has new things to learn and new challenges to overcome. Never has it been expected of me to be fully knowledgeable in everything on the first day, and I've been allowed room to grow and develop in my settling in period for all jobs. I fully expect that if or when I leave NCAS, I'll enter another role where there will be something I don't yet know and will have to learn. Getting into the software development field can sometimes seem daunting, as there are so many languages, technologies and frameworks to potentially learn. I'd like to close this out by giving some advice for anyone looking to get into the software development industry. First, don't be put off by the long list of requirements on many tech job listings. Oftentimes they are bloated far beyond what is required, and in every job I've gotten I've not met the full list of required or preferred skills and experience. Second, if you're wondering what technologies to learn to get into the industry, I'd provide the following advice. First, try not to focus too hard on any one language or technology. Try instead to teach yourself how to pick up something new with as much relative ease as possible. For languages, this generally means having a decent understanding of underlying principles such as variables, control statements, object-oriented code, etc. For new technologies, this would mean getting comfortable reading documentation aimed at developers. Don't worry about remembering everything. I regularly go back to documentation in the course of my workday. That's to be expected. Simply try to get used to being able to pull out specific details from often fairly detailed documentation. If looking to learn a language, then consider either Python, JavaScript or C#. These are all popular languages with a lot of jobs on the market for them, as well as a wealth of online resources for learning them. If looking to develop websites, then you might consider learning the basics of either React, Vue, or the new Svelte. If you're looking to develop back-end software, suggestions get a little trickier simply due to the more open-ended nature of the technologies available. You might consider looking into Entity Framework for C#, Flask for Python, or Express for JavaScript. Finally, when it comes to interviews, I personally found that the following worked well for me. Be well presented and friendly. Be comfortable answering simple programming problems like FizzBuzz or reversing an array. Have a reasonable understanding of the solid programming principles and some common software design patterns. You should be able to find good resources for these online. And finally, express a willingness to learn new technologies as needed. I hope that you found at least somewhat useful, and that it will encourage you to give software development industry a try. Good luck to all of you.
Hi, I'm Emily. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm currently working in software development at a company called Genesis, who creates software for customer service centers. My current job is software QA engineer, despite my background being business and marketing. I started this career about 5 years ago with no previous knowledge or training. The good thing about QA is that you can sort of learn on the job and improve your skills fairly easily. I would say it's a good place to start if you'd like to learn how to code. In this job, I have been testing websites and apps as a user would, but also I was exposed to the software development process as a whole. So how you would build a website, how you'd build apps, and even in the grand scheme of things, how the internet works. As we would have devs on our team, I was also able to directly see what they were doing and ask them questions, which benefited me in terms of learning how to code. Most of the devs I worked with were more than happy to help me figure out how to set up personal coding projects, and that definitely helped. The way I got there was to start as a manual QA, which means simply you just test the website as a user would. It wasn't the most exciting for me, but it definitely helped me get where I wanted to go. To get that job, I mainly had to demonstrate that I had good attention to detail, that I was able to question, and I was able to push back. That's quite an important part as a QA, because people making the products that you're testing will try to convince you that, well, hopefully not, but they might do, that you are just testing wrong when really it should work in any case. I know a few other people who have also gotten into that role, manual tester or QA role, by doing an IS to QB exam. So I didn't do one personally, but I definitely think it can help you boost your chances of getting the first QA job. You can either study by yourself and go for the foundation exam by itself, which is around £200, or you can book a class for 3 days and then pass the exam at the end, and the total of all of that would be about £700. And the price will vary depending on the location, but it's definitely something to think about if you want to put that on your CV and potentially get more responses back. Once you're in the manual tester job, you can start to learn how to code, like I did. I started online, mainly because I had to for work, but I also wanted to. We used an online school called Treehouse. The company paid for it, so I'm not sure of the costs, but there are equally good ones out there, such as Code Academy, and others that are free, but they're as good, and they will make you do exercises to test your knowledge. I started learning Java as my main programming language, as I could use it to write automated tests for work. But then I started to learn others because I was interested in them. So I tried Python because I wanted to try out machine learning. I did some JavaScript and HTML for small front-end projects. And I even tried out C#, mainly to see what the fuss was about. It can be a bit hard sometimes as a QA to learn how to code at the same time as working and to keep that learning curve going. But someone that, I think it was one of the devs, told me that you could try to do coding katas. It's something that you can find pretty easily on Google. The idea is that you can pick whichever language you want, and you'll be given a prompt to solve a puzzle using that language. It helps you figure out the what you don't know yet bit of learning how to code, in terms of logic at least, which I found quite helpful. Finally, I also started studying for the Oracle Java Foundations exam. I haven't taken it yet, but studying for it did expose me to various non-test areas of Java itself. I would recommend a QA job to anyone who's interested in learning how to code, but isn't sure how to make the leap from not knowing how to print out "Hello World" to applying for an entry-level developer role, where you might be put against computer science graduates, and that can be a bit tough to start off a career in that. There is a good variety of QA jobs out there. Some might be more hands-on than others, but you'd hopefully get to be exposed or involved in coding for most of them. And you'd learn how the software development cycle works as well, which is quite interesting. So this is it. I hope it was helpful to some of you, and good luck to all.
That was our final video. First, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to our speakers, to Rachel and Emily and Jake, for taking the time to share their stories, to record those videos and to give us their advice. If you'd like to ask them a question, you can comment below, or you can reach out to us on social media and we will pass on the query and put you in contact with them. As always, you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. You can also become a member of our meetup group, and you can now also sign up to our mailing list We hope in the coming days to be putting together a first newsletter and sending that out, which should contain all the resources that have been mentioned in this video, along with other blogs and articles and things about starting a career in tech or progressing your career in tech, which we hope that you'll find interesting and really helpful. All the links will be in the description below, and that the links will also be publicised on our social media accounts. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. We hope that you found it enjoyable. We hope that you've learned something and found it useful. And we really hope to see you at one of our future events.